The morning crowd pressed tight against the counter, steam hissing from the espresso machine, milk frothers screaming over half-heard orders. Cups knocked together, a line curled to the door. He stepped forward when his turn came, navy suit, slightly wrinkled at the sleeves, shoes polished but worn at the edges. He set both hands lightly on the counter. "Small black coffee, please." The cashier glanced him up and down, lips twisting. The girl beside her leaned closer and whispered, not quietly enough, "Did he get that suit from Goodwill?" They laughed. He reached into his pocket and drew out a few folded bills and coins. A quarter slipped from his fingers, spinning across the tile before settling near someone's heel. A man in line sighed dramatically. "Sir," the second cashier said, rolling her eyes, "we take cards. It's 2026. More laughter. The room fell still enough to feel it. He bent, slow and deliberate, fingers closing around the coin. 3 weeks earlier, Thomas Whitaker sat at the end of a long glass conference table 40 floors above the city. Sunlight cut across polished wood. A screen glowed with charts, declining customer satisfaction, rising complaints, 3 pending lawsuits tied to employee conduct. He listened more than he spoke. At 68, Whitaker had built his fortune the slow way: logistics, real estate, disciplined acquisitions. No flash, no headlines. When Brucor's regional franchise group came across his desk, he noticed something others didn't. The numbers weren't just slipping, the culture was. He purchased controlling interest within 10 days. There was one condition written into the agreement: unannounced site visits before any leadership restructuring. No polished walkthroughs, no staged smiles. He still wore the same modest suits he'd owned for years, grew up in a 2-bedroom house above his father's hardware store. He never confused appearance with value. And he never forgot how quickly people reveal themselves when they believe no one important is watching. This morning's visit wasn't on any calendar. Back in the cafe, quarter now in hand, Whitaker straightened slowly. He noticed everything: the snickering, the sidelong glances, the manager leaning against the pastry case, scrolling her phone as if none of it concerned her. He waited. He placed the quarter on the counter without comment. Behind the register, the whispering didn't stop. It shifted shape. "Imagine dressing like that and coming downtown," one of them muttered, loud enough to travel. Another voice joined in from the espresso machine. "Probably thinks this is fine dining." A couple near the pickup station exchanged a glance and looked away quickly, eyes dropping to their phones. No one said a word. The manager finally lifted her head, irritation creasing her forehead, not at the laughter but at the delay. "Sir," she said flatly, "if you're holding up the line, please step aside." He met her eyes for half a second, then nodded once. "Of course." He moved to the side, hands folded loosely in front of him. They were loud, animated. Performing for each other, he was still. While they joked, he observed name tags slightly tilted. A shift schedule taped crooked behind the counter. A health rating certificate framed but hanging unevenly, one corner slipping lower than the other. A cracked tile near the espresso station where someone could easily trip. His gaze wasn't wounded. It was measuring. The coffee was poured carelessly, sloshing near the rim. No apology. The room's discomfort thickened, and the tone shifted from careless to personal. The barista slid the cup across the counter without looking at him. The lid wasn't pressed down all the way. As it skidded to a stop, coffee sloshed over the rim and splashed onto his sleeve, a dark stain spreading through the navy fabric. The cashier gave a small shrug. Dry cleaners probably used to it. A ripple of laughter moved behind the counter. He looked down at the stain, then back up. Not angry, not flustered, just present. The manager stepped forward now, folding her arms. "Next time," she said, voice carrying easily across the room, "maybe dress for the neighborhood." The sentence hung there, heavier than the steam in the air. No one spoke. A woman near the door pressed her lips together and stared at the floor. A man in a business suit shifted his weight, but kept his eyes fixed on his phone. Silence settled in layers. From his inner pocket, he removed a neatly folded white handkerchief. He dabbed his sleeve with slow, precise movements, careful not to smear the stain. When he finished, he looked at the manager. "Is this how you train your staff?" he asked, voice even, almost conversational. She let out a short laugh. "This is a coffee shop, not a country club. Then she tilted her head toward the door. "If you're unhappy, you're welcome to leave." Every pair of eyes in the store was on him now. He picked up the cup, and instead of heading for the door, he stopped. He set the coffee back down on the counter. Then he turned, not sharply, not for effect, just enough to face the manager fully. "Could you call your regional director?" he asked, almost gently. She let out a short, incredulous laugh. "And who are you?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his inner jacket pocket with unhurried precision and removed a slim leather card holder, worn at the edges. He opened it, selected a single card, and placed it flat on the counter between them. For a moment, no one moved. Thomas Whitaker, majority shareholder, Whitaker Capital Parent Company. Brewcore Holdings. The milk frother continued its high-pitched whine in the background. Forgotten in someone's hand, the manager's smile thinned, then disappeared altogether. One of the cashiers blinked twice, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less threatening. He folded the card holder and returned it to his pocket. "I purchased Brewcore 3 weeks ago," he said calmly. "Today is my first visit." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. And in the silence that followed, understanding began to settle. The manager's face lost its color in slow degrees, like ink draining from paper. Her mouth opened, then closed again. That's not possible," one cashier whispered. "No way." A man near the pickup counter lifted his phone, camera angled just slightly. Another customer murmured under his breath, "I heard about the acquisition last month." The manager found her voice all at once. "Mr. Whitaker, we didn't realize. If there's been any misunderstanding." The words tripped over each other, faster and less steady each second. He lifted one hand, not high, just enough. "Please stop." The room obeyed. "I'll need a full staff roster," he said evenly. "Security footage from this morning, and the last 6 months of customer complaint logs." There was no anger in his tone. No triumph, just procedure. Behind the counter, someone forgot the espresso machine entirely. Coffee dripped in uneven spurts, tapping against metal. Minutes ago, they had filled the room with laughter. Now no one moved, and by the end of the week, the consequences would begin to surface. Within 48 hours, corporate compliance officers were inside the store. Security footage was pulled, cataloged, reviewed frame by frame, not just from that morning but from weeks prior. Audio was clearer than anyone expected. Tone carried. Patterns emerged. Human resources reopened past complaint files. Online reviews once dismissed as exaggerations were re-examined. A thread ran through them. Comments about selective courtesy, about certain customers being rushed, talked down to, treated as inconvenience rather than patrons. It wasn't a single bad morning, it was culture. The manager was placed on administrative leave by Friday. By the following Tuesday, her termination was finalized for policy violations and fostering a hostile work environment. 2 employees were dismissed after footage confirmed repeated misconduct. The announcement rippled across all 112 regional locations. Mandatory retraining sessions were scheduled within the month. A new code of conduct was issued company-wide, a respect-first service model, an anonymous reporting system routed outside local management, and executive random audits with no advance notice. A brief press release followed, careful in tone. It referred to a culture realignment initiative and a renewed commitment to customer dignity. The stock dipped for 2 days. Then it steadied. Regular customers returned slowly at first, then consistently. The store's online ratings began to climb, one review at a time. Reporters requested interviews. Whitaker declined them all. In a short internal memo circulated to leadership, he wrote only one line: "Culture is what happens when leaders aren't present." And then, just as quietly as he had arrived, he stepped back from the spotlight, allowing the changes to speak for themselves. 6 months later, the morning rush sounded different. The machine still hissed, cups still clinked, but the noise felt organized, steady. No sharp laughter cutting through it. Thomas Whitaker stepped through the same front door wearing the same navy suit, sleeves pressed but familiar at the seams. The cracked tile near the espresso station had been replaced. The health certificate hung straight. A new manager stood behind the counter, moving with quiet efficiency. The staff worked in rhythm, no whispered commentary, no side glances. When he reached the register, a young barista met his eyes and smiled. "Good morning, sir. Small black coffee?" He returned the smile with a slight nod. "Yes, thank you." He paid with a card this time. When the receipt printed, he added a tip larger than the coffee itself. As he stepped back outside, sunlight catching the glass, a framed statement on the wall near the door stood plainly in view. Dignity is not optional. It's unsettling how quickly a room can decide who matters. A jacket a little worn, shoes not brand new, a man counting coins instead of tapping a card. In seconds, assumptions harden, respect is withheld, and sometimes dignity is treated like a luxury item instead of a basic standard. How many opportunities are lost every day because someone looked unimportant? If you had been standing in that line hearing the laughter, would you have spoken up? Or would you have looked down at your phone and waited for it to pass? And here's another question worth considering. Should leaders test their own businesses this way, walking in unannounced to see what really happens when no one thinks it counts? Real power rarely announces itself, and character reveals itself most clearly when we believe no one important is watching. Have you ever been underestimated because of how you looked or what someone assumed about you? What happened next? Share your story below, and if stories of accountability matter to you, stay with us.